Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Betz King, and this is Seasonal Psychology, Nature-Inspired Interventions Around the Wheel of the Year. I am an existential humanistic clinical psychologist from Metro Detroit, and when I was young and training, clients' charts went through what were called quarterly reviews, and this is where their goals were reviewed 4 times a year or seasonally, and their progress was commented on. I'm also a pagan, which is one of the earth-based spiritual traditions, and the seasons are an integral part of my life and how I live it. So it was not difficult for me to start conceptualizing my clients' progress seasonally as I was doing my quarterly reviews. This presentation is an outgrowth of my blog, The Seasonal Psychologist, and an upcoming book as well. And I'm really grateful to you for taking some of your precious conference time to spend with me. Our objectives for today are for you to be able to define ecopsychology and what it means to have an ecopsychological sense of self, to be able to list 8 seasonal events and how they are experienced by the ecopsychological self, to identify tools and techniques for using seasonal events in service of your client's goals, and to articulate ways that seasonal metaphors can be used to treat common mental health issues. Lastly, I want you to be able to identify clients who would and would not be good for these types of interventions. So what do we mean when we say ecopsychology? Ecopsychology is the intersectionality or the relationship between living organisms and their physical surroundings. Ecopsychologists are especially interested in how the environment impacts feelings, behaviors, identity, and they're also really interested in how humans decide how to treat the environment, especially in these times of great climate crisis. We all have an ecopsychological self, and I love the idea fleshed out by St. John and MacDonald. That's David St. John, who is also a humanistically trained psychologist and might be at this conference, might be in the hospitality suite here. If you are, hi David. Anyways, they related 2 fundamental assumptions about the ecopsychological self. And the first is that there is a flexible boundary between nature and humans, and that having a sense of self that includes nature makes people happy. Okay, so I used a tree and people here because there's a flexible boundary between a tree and a person. We can climb a tree. A tree can give us food. A tree can give us shade. We might feel happy when we see a tree. We can also help take care of trees. We can plant trees, right? So there's the flexible boundary. And for many people, being with trees is a source of happiness. At least it is for me. So it's most useful to think about the seasons in terms of lightness and dark, because that's largely what makes the seasons, right? When there's lots of light, it's warm. When there's not so much light, it's cold. Sometimes it's just right. So it's helpful to think about 4 points in the year. The winter solstice, which is the darkest day of the year, has the most hours of darkness. It's sometimes called the longest night. It's the shortest day of the year. The spring equinox has day and night at equal length. The summer solstice has the most hours of daylight, the shortest night or the longest day of the year. And the fall equinox again has day and night of equal length. Now remember how St. John and MacDonald said that there's a flexible boundary between self and nature, and that having a sense of self that includes nature can contribute to our well-being. I would add that our human experience of the seasons is as old as humankind. Humanity has always taken place in the context of seasons. And so I think that we are embedded in and we embody the seasons of nature. Prior to our civilized ways, we depended on the sun and its light and its warmth for all aspects of our survival. With it, our crops would go strong. After the harvest, we could store food for the winter. With it, our days would be warm enough for livestock to mate and reproduce, and giving us meat and milk and skins as a result. With it, there'd be enough warmth and daylight to travel safely to distant lands for supplies and celebrations. The sun's 365-day cycle dictated, and still does, life itself for humans, animals, and plants. And these 4 points in the cycle are significant. Now, I think most people feel the seasonal shifts. People grow tired as the days grow shorter, and they have more energy when the light returns in the spring. A block of cloudy days brings everybody down. A mild sunny day puts some pep in everyone's step. Seasons have religious, secular, historical, community, and familial importance, and rituals. And many religious holidays share roots with ancient agricultural holidays that were mainly concerned with what the sun was doing and not doing. So now let's talk about these 8 points in the year, these 8 seasonal markers. In a 52-week year, the sun makes an important move every 6.5 weeks. And in the earth-based traditions such as paganism or Wicca or Druidism, these 8 points are holidays or Sabbats as they are sometimes called. Sometimes there's a corresponding religious holiday nearby as well. For our purposes, we're interested in what the sun is doing because the sun is energy and is the force of growth and change. Now, some of the dates I'm going to share with you are fixed and they're the same each year, and others change depending on when the sun moves from one astrological sign to another. To avoid confusion, I'll list them as they're commonly celebrated, but do keep in mind that some might vary by a day or two. Now, we've already talked about the winter solstice, which is the longest night with the least amount of hours of daylight. The holidays around this time are usually about light, lights, returning light, faith, and hope. All kinds of celebrations designed to help out with the darkness. And we know that the summer solstice is the longest day of the year with the most hours of daylight. Celebrations at this time are usually held outdoors and are simply celebratory parties. The spring equinox, with day and night of equal length, is home to holidays about rebirth, new life, and fertility. You think about what the earth is doing, little sprouts are coming up. And the fall equinox, again, day and night of equal length, September 21st. These holidays tend to be about the harvest and about Thanksgiving because the crops are coming in. Now, there are 4 more holidays, sometimes called the cross-quarter holidays. You can see they form an X in the middle of this diagram. And the first is Groundhog Day, or Imbolc, or Candlemas. Falls on February 1st. And it's halfway in between the winter and the spring. So it really marks our ascent out of the darkness and towards balance. And the holidays here are about new beginnings. The next would be May Day, sometimes called Beltane. It's the halfway point between spring and summer. And it marks the point at which it's all downhill this summer. Holidays here are about fertility and growth. On August 1st, we have Lammas, halfway between the summer and the fall. It marks the point at which it's all downhill to autumn. And these holidays tend to be about the early harvest. And lastly, Halloween, or Samhain, October 31st. It's the halfway point between fall and winter, and it marks the descent into the darkest 6 weeks of the year. between Halloween and winter. That's as dark as it gets. Holidays here tend to honor the dead, make amends for wrongs, and prepare for darkness. Now I'm going to tell you how plants, animals, and humans experience these seasonal shifts. And then I'll show you how to work with them in therapy. I've given a verb to each of the 8 Sabbats that sort of captures its essence and what's going on, whether inside a plant or an animal or the earth herself. In the winter, we meditate. Meditation is a receptive act of letting things be and letting things come to you. At this time, plants are conserving energy, animals are hibernating, and humans are working on and with accepting the cold, accepting the dark, accepting the limited ability to travel and socialize. Groundhog Day, Candlemas in bulk. The verb is speculate. Speculation has a little more will and a little more direction. It's not so passive. Ideas are beginning to form. Plants are beginning their ascent from the underground, even though we can't see them yet. Animals are maybe rolling over and stretching, and humans are considering possible goals and solutions and options. You know, my grandma used to always look at seed catalogs about this time of the year because it wasn't time to plant them yet, but it was time to start dreaming about planting them. By the spring equinox, it is really time to create and germinate, which requires a concrete plan, and so plants are started from seeds here, or they're well on their way to breaking through the soil from last year. Animals are creating babies. Humans are naming and committing to taking action in specific directions, right? So you might be starting your seeds inside right now. You haven't taken them outside yet, but you know what you want in your garden and you're getting ready to take it outdoors. And so by May Day or Beltane, it's time to animate and pollinate. Time to take action. Plants are planted outside by now, or if they've come up on their own, it's time to protect them, fertilize them, prune them. Animals are teaching their babies to be independent, creating their summer homes. Humans are headed into decisive direction. You've got your garden in the ground, and now it's time to tend to it. It's a commitment for the rest of the year. In the summer solstice, everything should be growing, and the day with the most hours of light is when you can really see what's growing on. Get it? Growing on? Life loves sunshine and warmth, and all is growing lush. Plants are rooted and they're reaching for the sky. There isn't so much labor required to tend to them. They know how to grow. Animals don't need to work as hard now. They have enough food. Their offspring are old enough that they can relax a little bit. Humans are healthy and social and confident, optimistic. And the tree outside your therapy office, if you have one, is in full glorious bloom. The first harvest, or Lammas, around August 1st, is when we first start to contemplate. Some of the harvest is coming in. It's easy to see what survived the summer, what thrived. The plants are ripening, and the fruits are ripening. And some of them we might be able to pick right about now. More are coming in soon. Humans are really proud of their hard work at this time. It's starting to feel like a new normal. And animals are well-fed and lazy and maybe aware that it's almost time to start planning for the fall. By the time we get to the fall equinox, it's time to celebrate because the harvest has come in. Crops have been gathered, land's been turned over for next year. There's plenty of food to celebrate with and a lot of gratitude for all that's been given. Most of the plants have been harvested. Maybe some will be soon. The animals are beginning to consider their winter plans. Are they going to migrate? Are they going to hibernate? Humans are literally reaping what they sowed. And at Halloween or Samhain, it's time to commemorate. Remember that these 6.5 weeks between now and winter are the darkest of the entire year. This is time to give thanks to the earth for her bounty, to ancestors for any guidance, and to oneself for a season well spent. It's also time to take stock of what's been harvested and what's available for the dark weeks ahead. Plants here have now been recycled and they're tucked into their beds, and they will rise again next spring. Animals are migrating south, or they've created their hibernation dens, and the humans are planning for holidays of light. Okay, now let's take a look at actual applications to therapy. For our purposes, we are going to say that it is winter, a time of meditation, and this is the pre-contemplation stage of therapy. So let's say that our client hasn't even come to therapy yet, but they know deep inside that it's time to make a change. And so by the time Groundhog Day comes, new beginnings, speculation, the client decides to come to therapy. And they contemplate and speculate about what's not working. There's a belief that things can get better. There's a brainstorming of possible changes that can be made. And definitely treatment planning is happening right here. By the spring equinox, a direction has clearly been chosen. And it's now time to germinate that direction. So new goals have been created. There's usually a sense of hopefulness. This is also the time that if your client's been with you for more than a year, you can look at what goals from last year are coming up now. Because remember, things that we planted last fall are coming up now in the spring. And this is also a time to name new dreams and directions that are just forming, but they still need some protection, just like a sprout might be poking through the ground, but still needs to be protected. So early therapy happening here. I see where I'm going, and I'm excited about getting there. Now, May Day Beltane, our verbs are to animate and pollinate. So we've got a direction chosen. We've got some goals set, and now it's time to take action. So in therapy, this is where clients try out new behaviors. They experiment. There's a lot of trial and error. It requires patience. We need a sense of humor and lots of self-care here. But I think it's safe to say the training wheels are off of the bicycle, and pedaling is happening. Summer solstice, the time to appreciate. So this is a great time to conduct a treatment review because it's so easy to see what's growing on. And yes, I said growing on. Get it, huh? Those baby goals that were set in the spring should be big and strong now. And if not, there's still some time to prune and correct. So by the time we get to the first harvest or Lammas, the sweet spot right in between the longest day of the year and the fall equinox, we could take a moment to pause and look at what will likely be the fruits of the labor. Like we've got a decent idea about what goals are working and how they're working. The tools are starting to feel more dependable. And we can talk about whether or not our goals are manifesting as we desired. Are the outcomes going to be what we think they are? What has worked? What's not working? Still time to make some course corrections. And by the time we get to the fall, we should be celebrating. Again, day and night are of equal length, and this is a good time of the year to talk about what's in balance. So there's lots of possibilities when we talk about balance. The balance of inner locus of control versus external locus of control. The balance between isolating and connecting. Balance of masculine and feminine, or fear and love. This is also time to assess those goals set in the spring and to assume that what one sees in one's life at this moment are the products of intentionality and hard work. Right? We planted them in the spring and here they are in the fall, our goals, our new behaviors. Maybe some things didn't come out the way we wanted them to. Maybe distraction prevented some things from coming to fruition, but also maybe accidental growth occurred that was unexpected. And then we get to the end of the year, Halloween, Samhain. We have a really clear idea of how the goals have manifested. And it's time to commemorate or honor the relative success or failure. So what worked, what didn't? What have we reaped that we sowed? What wisdom do we now possess that we did not possess? And remember, these next 6 weeks are going to be the darkest of the whole year. And so it's a good time to talk about darkness and light. All the holidays of light will be coming up. This is also a good time to name strengths and gifts inherited from the earth and the ancestors. And it's a time to prepare for the cold and dark, and with clients for the impact of cold and dark on mood disorders. Right, because everybody's mood takes a little bit of a dive in these darkest 6 weeks. Now I'm going to show you how the seasonal interventions apply to an actual case study. I'm going to tell you about Mary, who's a 52-year-old single white female. She's a mother of a grown daughter, and she works as an account payable rep. Mary's family of origin was crippled by a raging father and a passive mother. She was both the scapegoat and the caretaker. And she arrived in treatment with me with very low self-esteem and a long history of dysthymia. She was drawn to the earth-based religions, and she chose therapy with me because she knew I wouldn't judge her or misunderstand. Her goals were to feel better about herself, to find a life partner, and to find the confidence to chase some dreams. She had a fair amount of social anxiety. Now remember, the first quarter of the year, from the dark of winter solstice to the equal day and night of the spring equinox, is a time to meditate and speculate. If you have a tree outside your office window, you won't see it doing much. All the work is happening below ground. That doesn't mean it's not going on. Mary spent this time doing original pain work. She excavated her family of origin, looked at her family system, and identified all of the distortions that she had come to believe as a result. This was hard work, and it's not surprising that her depression got worse in the first quarter. In the second quarter of the year, as the days grew longer and Mary began to heal some of the shame and doubt of her family system, she was able to dream of a better life. If you have a tree outside your office window right now, it's creating, germinating, animating, and pollinating all the buds and leaves and fruit that will grow on it. There's lots of growth in the second quarter. And so it was true for Mary. She created some dreams, and then she germinated them by making plans. She pollinated them by taking classes, and she animated them by going out even though she was scared. By summer solstice, the longest day of the year, we could see a life full of new learning and new skills and new friends. In the third quarter, as the days grew shorter, we appreciated and contemplated all that Mary was beginning to harvest from her new behaviors, and where she still had work to do. If there's trees outside your office during this time, they are at their most beautiful of the whole year, and Mary's confidence was greater than it had ever been. She had confronted a fear of feeling called to provide healing touch, and she was taking training in healing touch. She was actively engaged in a mindfulness class, and she had traveled to several spiritual locations on vacations. At work one day, she had cast a sacred circle around her cubicle to protect her from some coworkers who were bullying her, and it empowered her greatly. And so she felt more confident in her spiritual skills than she ever had. And she also began writing ceremonial meditations at this time and sharing them with some of the people in her spiritual community. Finally, as the world prepared for its darkest days in the fourth quarter, it was plain to see the bountiful harvest that Mary's hard work had yielded. Her critical inner voice was mostly gone, and with it most of her dysthymia. She had a deep compassion for herself and others, and she could spot a cognitive distortion in seconds flat. She was able to replace distortions with loving kindness and truth. She had found a spiritual community, and she was continuing her healing training, touch, and mindfulness practice. We took time on Samhain or Halloween to commemorate her journey, and we planned for ways in which she would weather the dark days ahead. If you're lucky enough to have a client for more than just 1 year, you see how, again, winter solstice issues in a new year, a new time of reflection, and goals can be revisited again around the 4 seasons. Here's a chart that shows 4 of the common mental health issues that you might be treating: adjustment disorders, anxiety disorders, dysthymic disorders, and trauma. And it sort of looks at what could be happening at these 8 various points in the year. So in the winter, when it's time to meditate, this is a time of acceptance and allowing for what is and for being safe and warm. Groundhog Day, when we begin to speculate about things, it's time to consider possible adjustments, to identify distortions that might be preventing growth, to consider what might help. In the spring, creating and germinating. It's time to name some goals. It's time to refute any distortions that you've identified. It's time to make a plan. And it's time to engage in activities that are healing. By May Day, it's time to animate and pollinate. Psychoeducation is really helpful here. Practice is really helpful. Clients should be facing fears and taking action, taking care of themselves. No action is too small, but action has to be taken here, because by the time we get to the summer solstice, we need to be appreciating some kind of a new normal. We hopefully are enjoying new freedom from fear, identifying improvements in mood, articulating areas of strength. Hopefully there is something to be happy about in the summer. When the first harvest is coming in, it's time to start thinking about the effectiveness of our new behaviors. Have they worked the way we wanted them to? Are we getting the results we want? Do we need to course correct? And in the fall proper, autumn equinox, it's a time to celebrate, because hopefully there have been some new behaviors and some new results harvested that we can take credit for and give thanks for. And when we get to the end of the year, regardless of the diagnosis, hopefully we can name some lessons that we have learned from our presenting issues, and have some gratitude for all the hard work we've done. Hopefully we can honor our journey and continue to trust the process. Now, how each of these looks specifically to the diagnosis policies themselves is up to you and your client, and the many wonderful treatment planners that are available. Let's take just a minute to talk about who would be a good candidate for seasonal psychology and who would not. Obviously, anybody who's got an earth-based spiritual practice, a pagan, a Wiccan, a druid, somebody with a general New Age belief system, they would be great. Spiritual but not religious clients would be good. Any kind of an outdoor athlete or an outdoor exerciser is already connecting with the seasons intimately, and so this would work for them. It'd be best if there was no history of psychosis, and obviously we need people who can think metaphorically. Clients whose religion has similar holidays around the wheel of the year might find this easy to incorporate. And let's talk about for a second who would not be good. Clients with a religious belief system that does not allow for these seasonal metaphors are not going to enjoy this kind of work. And obviously, clients who can't think abstractly or metaphorically aren't going to be enjoying this kind of work. Clients with a history of psychosis or delusions should probably stay away from this. It's not concrete enough. And clients with an aversion to the outdoors probably won't enjoy this unless that's the explicit treatment goal for, let's say, agoraphobia maybe, or some kind of an outdoor phobia. Here are your references. I want to thank you again for choosing to spend some of your valuable conference time with me. I hope that I've given you some new ways to consider how your clients can use the seasons as a treatment tool. And I hope you have a great rest of your conference. Be well.